Alex Tuch, 1 year remaining on his contract, eligible to sign on July 1st. Will he sign with the Sabres? And if he does, what will it look like? We'll get to it coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Thursday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you do get your podcasts. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel and check us out on our Locked On Sabres text club. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place for that if you would like to sign up. Today's episode is presented by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Sneaky Joe DiBiase through game one of the Stanley Cup Final. I've got something to say about game one a little bit later on, my observations and what we saw from Edmonton and Florida in the first night of the finals here. That's coming up a little bit later on today's show. I do want to get to a lot on Alex Tuch today, as he is the next player subject for our exit interview series, and really want to get a lot into the contract situation with Alex Tuch. There is a decision that is needed to be made by more so Tuch, I think, than the Sabres in July, whether or not he wants to sign an extension with the Buffalo Sabres or if he wants to ride it out. And if he does, then the Sabres might have a decision to make on their hands. But we'll get to what that could look like if Tuch is to sign right now and what the Sabres should do if he doesn't. I don't think he won't, but we'll get to it all coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. As I mentioned, be sure to check us out on our text club. Our text question of the day: would you trade Mattias Samuelsson to Philadelphia for Nick Seeler and Nick Delorier? Former Sabre, you want to bring back Nick Delorier. Now, I've said I would buy out Mattias Samuelsson, so getting back anything for him, I guess you could view it as a bonus. And what this texter picked out here are two of the more physical players on the Philadelphia Flyers roster. You got a shot blocker in Nick Seeler on the blue line, 6'3". You've got a guy who hits. And then with Delorier, I mean, I think most Sabre fans remember him enough to know that he is a big, fighting, defensive fourth liner that is going to stand up for teammates, and he might even go too far sometimes. He's definitely got an edge. He is still playing in the league at 33 years old. He very much, though, is, as low skilled you're going to get in an NHL player in today's game. I mean, 3 points last year, 31 games. Year prior, 4 points, so 7 points in his last 2 seasons. He's playing less than 10 minutes a night. I mean, really, he is more out there for the fighting and the intimidation than he is even anything of a two-way game. So do I want to replace Beck Malenstein on the fourth line with him? I really don't. I'd waive him if I did that deal. Seeler is the one who's a little bit more interesting to me. And really, what it is for me is that you are getting rid of the Samuelsson contract. The texter didn't include anything about, how much money Philly would have to take back or the Sabres would have to take back. Seeler is at $2.7 million for 3 more years, excuse me. So it's not like his contract is nothing, but it's almost half of what Samuelsson's is for money and half what the term is. So, yeah, I'd rather have that, even though I don't think the player is any good at all. But, yeah, I would rather have Seeler at this point. So there's that. Again, text club, you want to hit us up. Be sure to, a lot of good conversation in there, a lot of good questions that I see, and we'll keep rolling through them as the offseason keeps going. Let's get into Alex Tuch, the next subject of our exit interview series as we look back on their season in 2024-25 and look ahead to 25-26 and beyond. And for Alex Tuch, it was a bounce back year in terms of the goal scoring, in terms of the overall statistics. And I think that was inevitable. He took a bigger jump forward than I thought he would. When he scored 36 goals in 2022-23, the year the Sabres missed by 1, I didn't really think he'd ever repeat that. I thought he'd regress. He did regress that next year to 22 goals. And then this year, he goes right back up to 36. Fewer assists, but the goal scoring number was back to where it had been. I still don't think that is his more likely season year to year. I think 36 is the ceiling for Tuch. I believe we've seen that, but he did prove that ceiling he might be able to repeat once in a while. And he was able to do that last season. I don't want to bet on that again, but a good year, a very good year. And part of what got him to that 36 goal number in his age 28 season is Alex Tuch led the NHL in shorthanded goals. I have called him for 3 years now, and I'm probably being disrespectful to Connor McDavid when I say this, so maybe McDavid's the one who's better, but I've called Alex Tuch the best forechecker in the National Hockey League. I think, again, if McDavid isn't, Tuch is. The combination of elite speed, elite skating, height, a long reach at 6'4", and a long stick on top of it. He's everywhere. When he is on you in your own end as a defenseman, he's as tough to get the puck around as anybody in the sport because he has all of those things working for him. Now, that causes turnovers, and sometimes those turnovers happen at inopportune times for the opponent. And when he's on the penalty kill, you turn it over to him on the point or you turn it over to him in the neutral zone. And a lot of your players are being more aggressive in those situations. So he's able to generate an odd man rush or get a breakaway. And then he's pretty good at finishing on those opportunities. So he's able to convert them into goals, defense to offense. He is not, in my opinion, some standout all around defensive stalwart. I don't believe he is a player that will ever win the Selke Trophy or come close to win the Selke Trophy. But, it is worth pointing out, if you want it, that last season was the first time in Alex Tuch's career that he ever received a vote for the Selke Trophy. He received a second place vote for the Selke, 3 fourth place votes, and 4 fifth place votes. So when you look at the total of the votes, it comes out to 20 in that system, which is only 2 behind Austin Matthews, couple above Vincent Trocheck, who I can't believe got votes last year, Philip Deneau, Sebastian Aho, some of the better two-way players of the league. So not near winning, but again, he got 20 votes. Alex Barkov gets 1,363 votes for what he does. But you do have a player that makes a defensive impact in his own way. So there's that. And if you get the goal scoring along with it, what you have is a veteran player at an age where he is right in his prime, and he's an adult, right? In a team filled with a lot of kids. He's an adult in the room. And I think he's someone who's going to stand up for teammates. He'll drop the gloves. He's done it with Brady Tkachuk. He did it a couple of times this season. So Alex Tuch, I think, is a very well-liked player. I think he deserves that from fans. I think everybody would like to see him stick around long-term, including the organization. He's a Sabre fan, right? Growing up, that always helps a little bit. And I don't think there's really anything to be critical of here. I mean, again, he's not a perfect player, but I don't see anything to be critical of. Speed, scoring, defense to some degree. You're getting a little bit of everything, if not a lot of it of everything. The one thing I will say about what he did last year, 36 goals again, an 18.4% shooting percentage when his career average is 12.4. He shouldn't be expected to score that many goals that many years. He had some interesting advanced numbers last year. So when Alex Tuch is on the ice last season, the Buffalo Sabres won 55-43. They scored 55 goals. The opponent scored 43. This is just at 5-on-5. That is the second best percentage of any Buffalo Sabre last year, only falling below Rasmus Dahlin. Dahlin, when Dahlin's on the ice, the Sabres scored 58% of the goals. When Tuch's on the ice, the Sabres scored 56% of the goals. A couple of percentage points higher than Tage and Peterka and McLeod and Kulik and all the other guys. So good results, as good as anybody on the team. What I was looking at when I was doing prep for the show, it's a little bit interesting, is Tuch's expected goals for. He's second in goals for percentage. Expected goals for percentage on the Buffalo Sabres last year. He ranks 10th. 54% goals for percentage, 56%, excuse me, 48% expected goals for. And I'm like, why is that? Now, what I think I've kind of found about Tuch is he scored more goals than he probably should have last season, but that's not to say he wasn't good. His individual expected goals, not how many expected goals the team had when he was out there, but his expected goals on the season at 5-on-5 only was 15. By putting together where his scoring chances came from and what areas of the ice he was getting shots off, and you add all that up, and you get to, he should have scored like 15 goals last year at 5-on-5. He scored 22. There's a nice healthy difference there. 7 more goals than you might have thought he should have scored. Now, that doesn't have to be a luck stat, though. That sometimes could be a shooter stat. Tage Thompson, for instance, last year, who also was above his career high in shooting percentage. Tage Thompson's expected goals was second on the team at 14 at 5-on-5, and he scored 33. So way higher. But those two are like the only ones that are way higher than what their expected was, because like Zach Benson was expected to score 12 goals from his opportunities, and he scored 6. Kulik was expected to score 12. He scored 14. So it's right around the same. Zucker was expected to score 11, and he scored 9 just at 5-on-5. So a lot of other guys are pretty close or below what they were expected of. Thompson's way above. Tuch is a healthy margin above too. So, when you look at his shot, it's not like Tage. He's not a sniper. He's not in my opinion, a big, one-timer. He's not somebody that you put in his wheelhouse and he just blasts it through. I think he wins with his shot more through his own skating speed than he does with his shooting speed. He's moving very quickly. He's a little deceptive as a shooter because I do think he's able to shoot the puck without getting a lot of torque on his stick, and a lot of that is because of how fast he can be moving. And that's a little bit different than the way Tage shoots the puck and where Kulik shoots the puck, where they're putting all their weight on their stick. And Tuch can shoot that way also, but I just view him as a different type of shooter than your typical goal-scoring sniper that you might think of. He works for his opportunities. He skates towards his opportunities. He's pretty accurate with his opportunities, and whatever. You get the 36 goals the way you get them. And for Tuch, he's found a way to do it twice in the last 3 seasons. So I love the player. I think you're more likely to expect between 25 to 30 goals for him on average going forward. But listen, with 35, 36 thrown in once in a while, but that's a good player. That's a very, very good player if you're able to get that out of him. Plays on the top line, plays 19 minutes a night. He really just does check all the boxes. So, with all that being said, now he needs a contract. And we have to figure out if he wants a contract from this team. We'll get to that dilemma when we come back, as he is eligible to sign in less than a month. That's coming back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, wait a minute, where did all my money go? Because between dining out, a lot of good restaurants here locally, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so that you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling all those different apps all together, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals all in one place. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever, which is super valuable. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, you stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. We're talking about Alex Tuch today, and now we get to the juicy part, which is what does the future hold for Alex Tuch? He is in the final year of his contract that he signed way back when with the Vegas Golden Knights. He has never signed a contract with the Buffalo Sabres. Not that he wouldn't have. He loves the Sabres, and he was very excited when he got here. It does not mean inherently that he would be enthralled with the idea of staying long-term. That's going to be the most interesting question about Tuch. He was pretty coy about an extension, and, I think he could have been a little bit more pro, I want to be here forever at the end of season press conference, but he might not feel that way. So maybe he's thinking about it. Maybe he wants to get into it. It was much more a comment at the end of the season about, yeah, business. Like, I got to talk to my agent. I got to talk to my wife. He hasn't talked to his wife about it yet. He cited her. He really wanted to push off the question. It doesn't mean he wants to leave. It just means at that moment in time, he wasn't going to give the Sabres all the leverage in the world by saying, oh, yeah, I want to stay here no matter what. The no matter what, you don't want the, this is his big contract. One thing that's a little bit different about this extension from all the other big extensions that the Buffalo Sabres have signed, where, hey, they've done a good job getting players to sign deals where that's a young player that is cashing in and taking the security of a long-term deal and foregoing the opportunity to earn more. Thompson signs for $7.1 million a year after his first big year. He didn't want to wait around. If he waited around, maybe he would have earned $9 million, but he wanted the security of, I got that big year. They're offering it. I'm going to take it. And Samuelson was that, and Cousins was that. And there have been other examples, of course, of that as well. Power is that. Tuch is different in that all those guys were in their early 20s when they signed those deals. Alex Tuch, this is it. This is the big contract for him. And to be frank, he was way underpaid in the last 5 years of his deal. For less than $5 million, getting a player that's had a 79-point season, a 67-point season, another 20-goal season on top of that, give you all the impacts around the team that he does elsewhere as a veteran and as a good defender in spots. Not every season he's been a good defender. I want to get that out, but last year, pretty good. He's worth more than what he was getting. He's underpaid. And now, at 29 years old, I know what I would be thinking if I were Alex Tuch. This is my big deal. I can't give up anything right now because this is the one big monster contract I'm going to get in my career. I can't wait around. I can't wait till I'm 33, signing a 4-year. Like, it's not an option for somebody at that age. So, if the Sabres want to be cheap about it, and I'm him, I'm thinking, well, you haven't really earned the right to be cheap about this. Why should I take a hometown discount? Because you can't get your act together. You should pay me. I'm worth it, and I mean a lot to this team. I mean a lot to this organization, the locker room. I've earned my stripes. I've played for you for several years underpaid. Like, give me what I'm worth. And there's a question about that, what he is worth. But I think I would guess there is not a hometown discount coming for Alex Tuch. And I believe the Sabres should be willing to give him a deal that isn't a hometown discount because they can't let this guy go. 29 is the right age with a good player that the Sabres need. There were rumors at this past trade deadline that Tampa wanted Alex Tuch, among other teams. But Tampa was mentioned specifically multiple times. They wanted him. The cap helped that along for them, but he's the right age. He's the right fit. Every good team in the league wants a guy like Alex Tuch. The Sabres need a guy like Alex Tuch. They can't let him go. They can't let him slip. If he says, listen, I'm willing to go to the open market, and I think I could get $8.5 million a year on the open market. If that's his attitude and he drives a hard bargain and he's not really willing to negotiate back and forth, that's his stance, and I'm Kevin Adams, listen, you could say I'd be kind of ceding to him, but I would say, all right, I'll do it. I'm not going to let somebody else give you that $8.5 million. I want to be the one to give you that $8.5 million. And that is assuming he'd be willing to stay for any amount of money. And I would guess, I'm total guessing because all we really have are the couple of little things he said about it, and even those were more bypassing the question. And we know what he means to the area, what his thoughts are of the area. He just had a baby, so he started a family, and I don't know if he wants to uproot his life and move. Like, because of that, and again, I don't know him personally, so I don't want to just assume this is true because he just had a kid. But being from Syracuse, growing up a Sabre fan, starting a family, my guess is that he doesn't want to uproot all of that and go somewhere else. That's my guess. I think my guess would be if he could have it his way, he'd get that contract that he's looking for, but it would happen here. I'm not going to assume that, though. I would bet that that's the case. I wouldn't assume that's the case. Because the other thing about Alex Tuch, he's lived the other life. He has been on a team that's been to the Stanley Cup Final. That series that's going on right now, he's been in a moment like that. He played into the final with Vegas. He played 66 playoff games with the Vegas Golden Knights. He's been on a team that had it all together and had a lot of talent and went deep and made runs. He's been there. And I don't know how much he misses that. I don't know if he is so sick and frustrated of the losing here the way anybody would be. So again, maybe his growing up a Sabre fan, being from the area-ish, Syracuse, New York, overcompensates for that. But I would totally understand somebody that's been on a team as good as the Golden Knights were really missing that and not wanting to just automatically sign up in an organization that hasn't had a team like that in decades. So it's a real good question, I think. What is his motivation? What does he want? What does he want money-wise? What does he want location-wise for his next team? And I'll put it this way. Sabres should offer him $8.5 million. I think he's worth it. I think if you look at some of the comparables in the league for Alex Tuch, it's tough. You look at guys that signed extensions around 29 years old that were 60 to 70 point players on average, and that's more Tuch over the last 4 years rather than his Vegas career. What you're usually getting is like Mika Zibanejad is one, even though he's a center, so that's a little bit different, but he signed 3 years ago when the cap was going to be lower, and he signed for $8.5 million over 8 years. So there's one that's not far off. Bo Horvat signed at 28 years old. He's a 60 to 70 point player, and he signed an 8-year deal for $8.5 million. I think that tends to be about the number for a player of his caliber at his age. And that was before the cap goes up. Those guys are centers. I'm going to offset they signed on a lower cap, but they are centers with Tuch's going to sign on a higher cap, but he is a winger to get to around the same number. I'd guess 8 to 8.5 million is probably what he's worth. Maybe he thinks he could find somebody to give him 9.5 on the open market, but I think in the 8s is probably more likely for him. So there's that on Alex Tuch, what his next deal is going to look like. And finally on this, if he gives the Sabres an indication that I want to test free agency, or if he just doesn't want to sign an extension this summer, that's going to be tricky. That's going to be really tough. I think, honestly, if I were Kevin Adams and I can't get him to sign an extension this summer, I'll take the risk. I'm not going to go all the way to free agency, but I'm gonna go into the season with him on the final year of his deal. And I'm not going to trade him this summer. I don't think there's a circumstance where I would trade him this summer unless somebody wants to give me an obscene price. I'll go into the year with him. I'll see how my season starts. Maybe my team plays really well out of the gates and Tuch's playing well, and we come to an agreement sometime in the fall. And there's an extension that's signed once the season has begun. That has happened in the league. I would rather take the risk that I could get that. And then if I get to the trade deadline and it still appears as though he doesn't want to stay forever, maybe that's when I trade him, but not a moment sooner. If he doesn't want to sign, I would go into the season with him on the final year of a deal and see if I could figure it out over the course of the season. All right, Alex Tuch, $8.5 million is where I land on a 7-8 year deal because this is the one big contract of his career. By the way, on that with the term, I'm not afraid of it. Sure, the last 2-3 years of his deal, he's not going to be worth that, probably. But that's today's NHL. If you want the player that's that good, you got to say, yeah, I'm willing to eat 2 years of a bad contract to get 5 years of a really, really good player. That's the deal you got to make. All right, when we come back, game 1, what we saw from Oilers and Panthers and why I think the Oilers are going to win this series, especially after seeing game 1. That when we return. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a great snack that is both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. I'll be taking a big bag out to the golf course right after doing this podcast. That'll be my snack a little bit later on today. Love it. Wonderful Pistachios. They're one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, and that gives you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I like the no shells variety. I like just being able to grab a handful of them and popping them in. But if you do like the shells variety, maybe you'll love that satisfying crack of the shell. You've got those available to you as well. They provide all 9 essential amino acids, complete protein source. They're really as good of a salty snack as you're going to be able to find for you. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Be sure to visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back, Locked On Sabres podcast. Sneaky Joe DiBiase. Player intros were going on yesterday, and not that we haven't done this like every year, but it's like, man, look at all the former Sabres in this series. Introducing Evan Rodriguez, and introducing Sam Reinhart, and introducing Dmitry Kulikov, and Vander Kane on the other side. No Jeff Skinner last night, sadly, but you got your fix of former Sabres in this series. So Edmonton takes game 1. 4-3. Leon Draisaitl scores in overtime. Thanks to Leon for, I'm sure, a lot of hockey fans thankful they didn't have to stay up through another intermission and then maybe another whole overtime. Watching that first game, Edmonton to me is going to win this series, and I feel pretty confident in saying that right now. Respect to Florida. Wouldn't be stunned. The Panthers are a wagon. They are super physical. I love everything about their team build. But I think Edmonton's figured it out. Edmonton, one, they have the 2 best players in the series, right? And last night, McDavid was flying around. I wonder how he'll hold up through the series, because one thing that I notice about the Florida Panthers, and I'm sure other teams do this too, but I really always notice it with Florida more than anybody. Next time you watch a game, keep an eye on Florida and watch how they play Connor McDavid away from the puck. Don't watch the puck. Watch McDavid the next time he has a shift away from the puck, and watch Florida bump him and run into him and cross-check him 7 times before he ends up getting the puck. Because really what they're trying to do is wear him down and get in his way from getting to full speed. Because the refs aren't going to call those little obstructions. They're not going to. Maybe they would have in 2006 right out of the lockout, but they're not calling that right now. They might not even be watching that part of the play. So Paul Maurice and the identity of that team, the core leadership group of that team, has the right strategy. Let's get in his way. Let's get in his way as much as possible and not let him build up speed so that when they're entering the zone, he's going 1,000 miles an hour. That's the last thing we want. We want to slow him down at all costs. I thought McDavid handled all of that, fought through all of that beautifully during this game. He's almost like a wide receiver running routes in the open field where, if Draisaitl has the puck or if Draisaitl's on the second line and he's got Corey Perry with the puck or Nugent Hopkins, whoever, and he's the guy away from it, he looks like a wide receiver running routes, bobbing and weaving around the Panthers guys, trying to get just enough away from them so that they can't make solid contact with him away from the puck. I thought he was able to get the top speed a lot. You saw the Panthers trying to slow him down, and they really had a tough time doing it in this game. It's what makes, his game so tough to appreciate, like how good it really is, because it's beyond what he's able to do stick handling and a weight. Like there's an intensity to McDavid, and there's a mind for the game that is top notch also. He really deserves a lot of credit, not for just he moves at a speed like that. He also processes the game as fast as he skates, and that's hard to do for how fast the guy moves. My favorite player ever is Max Afinogenov. I mean, if you've listened to me at all on this podcast or WGR over the years, you know that. I love Max Afinogenov more than anybody. But Max Afinogenov could skate, almost as fast as Connor McDavid. He could not process it that fast. Not at all. He was processing at half the speed that he was skating. McDavid's processing at the speed. So while he's moving, he's got everything. He's like a sonar detector. He knows who's got the puck on his team, what the gap he's got to get to is, and what's in his way to get to that gap. And how do I get around? Like all of that is happening in his mind. He's so good. And I think he is going to lead this team to winning the series. The pass he makes when he goes in behind the net and he kicks it out in front to Matthias Ekholm for the game-tying goal, that little backhand sauce. I mean, it's not even his best game. He doesn't score in the game, right? He had a couple of chances of his own. He hit the post right after that. But that pass to tie the game in the third period, it's like the 10th best play he'll make in the whole series, and it was super important. So him and then Draisaitl's ability to finish from anywhere on the ice. Those two are going to lead the Oilers. There's a long way of getting to, though. I do think the Oilers have a lot around those two. They look more able than I've ever seen to shut down another team, especially when McDavid and Draisaitl aren't out there. I really like their blue line. I like their complete defensive effort. I think Evander Kane actually has helped them a lot. He's gone in for Skinner in that lineup, and one thing that we know about Evander Kane versus Skinner is Kane has always been a good two-way player. He's always been pretty good defensively. He's physical. He's a good skater, and I think that one extra guy to play in their middle six in that way. You get Connor Brown back. I just think they're tough to deal with themselves. Maybe not as much as Sam Bennett and all the Panthers that do that too, but they're close enough. The Oilers are close enough, and then their two best players kind of take it over the finish line. So I would pick the Oilers to win this series. Right now, I'd say probably in 7. I would say they probably win in 7. I still think Florida's going to keep it close. And hopefully Stuart Skinner can hold it together for that. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Next up on the show, what are we going to talk about next time? Let's figure this out right now, actually. We're going to talk about Zach Benson and what he needs to do. We're going to talk about Ryan McLeod also. We'll talk about a couple of guys on our next show. And then really next week, we'll start getting to free agent options. Free agency, trade options too. We'll continue to mix those in here and there. But we'll start poking around into the free agent pool because the Sabres want to do something big. And that's probably more likely to be a trade, but it's also possible to be a signing as well. So free agency, we'll start hitting that up and going through some different options next week on the show. So come back. We'll talk about it. Be sure to hit us up for a comment. We'll do a mailbag on our next show as well. So join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres if you want to text one in. Be sure to check out Locked On NHL Game Night for all the recapping of Game 1 and looking ahead to Game 2. You can check them out wherever you find your podcasts until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned, and we are almost there. Get your local analysis on a national scale. Find Locked On NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Talk to you next time here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.